Joining us now, co-founder and CEO of Axios, Jim VandeHei, Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist and associate editor of the Washington Post, Eugene Robinson, and former Congressman Denver Riggleman of Virginia. He served as an advisor for the January 6th House Select Committee. Good to have you all on board this morning.
Jim VandeHei, let's go. We've gone through some of what was said yesterday. I'm curious your take on one Trump insider, one Trump staffer after another saying we tried to get him to stop lying. We kept putting the facts in front of him, and he kept pushing us aside.
Yeah, there's a lot of Republicans and Democrats wondering why yesterday's hearing wasn't the primetime hearing. It was compelling and it was damning because it was in the words of basically everyone other than an intoxicated Rudy Giuliani standing around and saying, you don't have the evidence. What you're saying is wrong. It's morally wrong, and it's wrong based on the facts that we're seeing. And every video, especially Barr, but Jared Kushner, every Seppian, all these people coming up and saying this is nonsensical was very powerful. Then you link it to the fact that there was this fund, almost like a slush fund that's being created where they're putting money into it, and then Meadows and other people benefit from them. It's a very compelling story. I think it's why you have Liz Cheney and other people saying there should be criminal indictments that flow from this. It is just shocking, right? The number of people who are around him, so close, so intimate, who said that this is nuts. And the reason that this matters, I think a lot of people ask, like, whatever, we already have our minds made up. The reason that it matters is that it's not Team Normal that they described in the hearings yesterday that will be around Donald Trump if he runs and wins the presidency again. It's going to be more people like Team Rudy. So you're not going to have a White House with a lot of restraints like you saw in the early years of the first run of the Trump presidency. It's going to be much more like Rudy, like Trump, people who are backing his views, his lies, his approach. And I think that could have massive consequences for the country. And so I do think these hearings matter. And I think yesterday was very, very compelling.
Congressman Riggleman, you were an advisor to the January 6th Select Committee. I also noted that you've announced just in the last few days that you've left the Republican Party. Can you tell us about that decision?
Yeah, I mean, I was one of the first to see the actual Meadows text messages. And I have to tell you, when you look at that, it's very difficult to stay in a party that's really embraced fantasy over facts. And right beforehand, Mika and Joe were talking about, and I thought it was pretty prescient about economics. And it feels like it's a very good way to make money is to push that type of fantasy into the ecosystem. And it sort of scares me when you see the 12-page manifesto that President Trump put out yesterday. It's still, pushing that fantasy into the ecosystem where they're going to raise money. So when you're talking about economics and things of that nature, you're seeing it right now. You're seeing that money can be made in a very bizarre way by pushing apocalyptic conspiracies into the ecosystem, into your voter universe, and then leveraging that to run for office. And it almost seemed like that manifesto was a campaign announcement by Trump yesterday.
Congressman, were you surprised by anything as you began to work with this committee that you heard just how clear-cut this case appears to be, the way it's been presented anyway, that in fact Donald Trump did know that he lost the election, that he continued to perpetuate the lie, and that he in fact basically stood down on January 6th and did not call in any governmental agency or institution to protect the United States Capitol? When you sat down and looked at some of this evidence, were you shocked by it?
I was definitely shocked by the language of some of the evidence that I saw, especially not just text messages, but emails and all of the evidence and the documents that the committee compiled, and then to merge all of that data together and to see, these, and you're talking about millions of bits of data, right? You're talking about just an incredible amount of data that you have to merge, aggregate, and analyze. And what you see is a language of people who had bought in completely to the big lie, and they were not really afraid about it. They weren't afraid to say, hey, this is true. There's Democrats that drink blood in basements. Adrenochrome is a thing. We need to put people in Gitmo, right? There's watermarks. There's people burning ballots. All this stuff was pushed out there, and so many people believe it. And here's my fear. When I read all of this, and what you're seeing right now is that the midterms are coming up, and you're still going to have individuals that are voting on that type of fantasy. And that's something that we have to fight, because in the war between facts and fantasy, there's no guarantee that facts win. And I think the fight is just starting. And, again, it's worrisome for people like me who's been in the intelligence business, who's done a lot of military operations, to see that people are completely bought in on this fantasy.
Gene, one of the jobs of the committee, what it's trying to do is to connect Donald Trump's pushing of that lie to the actions of the people on January 6th. And the committee ended yesterday's hearing with a video of Trump supporters repeating the former president's election fraud conspiracy theories on January 6th. Let's listen.
I know exactly what's going on right now. Fake election. They think they're going to cheat us out of our vote and put Thomas Biden in office. It ain't happening today, buddy. You voted?
Yes, sir.
How'd it go?
Voted early. It went well, except for the can't really trust the software. Dominion software all over it.
We voted, and right in the top right-hand corner of the Dominion voting machine that we used, there was a Wi-Fi symbol with 5 bars. So that most definitely connected to the internet, without a doubt. So they stole that from us twice. We're not doing it anymore. We're not taking it anymore. So we're standing up, we're here, and whatever happens, we're not laying down again.
I'm from Pennsylvania. It didn't work. It absolutely worked. It didn't work. No. Trust the system. 200,000 people that weren't even registered voted. 430,000 votes disappeared from President Trump's tally. And you can't stand there and tell me that it worked.
I don't want to say that what we're doing is right. But if the election's being stolen, what is it going to take?
Those are the words of Trump supporters, Gene, on January 6th. We heard about the Dominion voting machines. We heard about Italian satellites. We heard about cyber ninjas, all of which, if you watched the testimony yesterday, Attorney General Barr, former Attorney General Barr, and many of the president's own advisors said, well, I'll paraphrase, were complete BS.
Yeah, right, and people believed the BS. The people who stormed and sacked the Capitol on January 6, 2021, did so because they believed all this BS that was being put out, principally by President Trump, also by some people around him, Team Rudy. Look, this is, you know, it was incitement to riot. It was, I think, seditious conspiracy. It was also fraud because they raised $250 million on these bogus claims that people around the president knew were completely bogus, were untrue. And you know, the question of criminal intent is going to come up. At least I hope it comes up. I hope Merrick Garland was paying close enough attention to that hearing to be, you know, taking notes about the president's criminal intent. And you can say, you know, he's nuts, he's crazy, he's out of touch with reality. But if you actually look at what he said and did, this was all intentional. He started it before the election. He continued it through the election, and his aim was to cling to power and to keep the grift going, to keep that money flowing in, and he was extraordinarily successful at that. I thought yesterday's hearing was stunning, and I'm sorry, but I can't jump to my feet and applaud Bill Barr. And Barr at least did say something after the election. He did say he saw no fraud. All these other people around the president, around President Trump, who still said nothing, who knew that the stuff was all bogus, who knew all along how unfit he was for the presidency, and who said nothing. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna applaud them. I'm not gonna clap for them.